What is good, defenders, and why am I all the way over there? Let's figure this out. It's me producing everything today, as you can tell, and I have no idea why I'm over where I'm at. There we go. I guess that'll work for now. What's good? It's the Scarf, J.R. Liebert, and welcome. That was fun. I'm back. I'm here. I'm not so tiny. What's good, everybody? We are getting set for the first real competition of 2026. And look, normally we do it here as one more sleep. But for this episode, as you know, when we play against somebody special, somebody who we don't normally see, somebody who maybe doesn't even play in Liga MX or definitely not MLS. Of course, this is a good one. This is from the Honduran First Division. This is Real España. And so because this is a big one, because this is not just CONCACAF Champions Cup, but our first time ever playing a Honduran side, let's see what this is going to look like. I'm bringing something on stage, and I have no idea what's going to happen right now. We could really use the talents of one producer, Panda. But I'm gonna add this to the stage. Hey, there we go. I am so tiny over here. Like this is kind of interesting here. If I click this, what happens? Yeah, that's too big. Okay, all right. So let's talk about a couple of things. I'm just going to be a talking head over here on the side. But that being said, want to say a very big thank you to our friends and now partners over at the Believe Network. This is our first ever episode that is going to be put on the platform of the Believe Network. So if you're watching this live right now on YouTube or on Twitter, you're able to do that. But also we are part of the Believe Network. And this will go up onto their platform and on everywhere where they put it out in just a little bit. But this one is a good one, folks. This is getting to know Real España, Real Club Deportivo España from Honduras. And let's get right into it. All right. Of course, why we are playing them is this kicks off our CONCACAF Champions Cup run in 2026. It starts in Honduras, and hopefully we'll then wind ourselves up playing Alajuelense, as you may be able to see here. Let's see. What if I press? I don't even know what I'm pressing right now on here, but where are we at here? I think that looks right. I have no idea where things are anymore. You guys should see what I'm seeing on this side right now. It looks like an absolute hot mess, but there we go. You can see on the screen there, we've got the we've got the bracket for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. We're all the way down in the bottom left. That's us, LAFC, taking on Real España. And of course, with that, hopefully a date with Alajuelense in the next round. That's the goal anyway. So we'll see what happens. Look, the bottom line is this. We are playing against a side, and we'll talk about their ranking in just a little bit. We'll talk about I got to figure out what's going on here with our production value. This is a hot mess, you guys, and a great way to debut here on the Believe Network. I'm actually having all kinds of problems on my end here. I got to figure out what's going on. There we go. There I am. Hi. Now we figured it out. Okay. Great way to start. Let's add this back to the stage, and now it looks relatively normal. There we go. All right. So let's talk about Real España, about the club. Look, this is a club that has been a club for quite some time, founded all the way back 96 years ago. And look, this is a very prideful side. This is a side that certainly is not the biggest club in Honduras. In fact, that's probably Motagua, it's Olympia. There are some very, very good clubs in Honduras. But that being said, 96 years ago, this club was founded July 14th, 1929. Their home is San Pedro Sula in Honduras. And here's the beautiful thing about San Pedro Sula. It is a fantastic city. It's a beautiful city. More on San Pedro Sula in just a second. In fact, no, let's get into San Pedro Sula right now. Founded 489 years ago. Founded in the year of 1536. That's right, 1536. It used to be a local trade hub for the Mayan and Aztec people before Spanish colonization. Population about 835,000 people. It is the second largest city in Honduras, behind, of course, the capital of Tegucigalpa. It's the fourth largest city in Central America, in all of Central America, fourth largest city in Central America. And oh, by the way, it's the largest city in Central America that isn't a country's capital. Unfortunately, I am not in Honduras. I am not in San Pedro Sula. I am behind the world famous, or in front of the world famous scarf wall right now. But it is an absolutely beautiful city of San Pedro Sula. I am unfortunately not on location. San Pedro Sula generates about 65% of Honduras's total GDP. As a country, there is no city more important, and that includes the capital of Tegucigalpa, than San Pedro Sula. Unfortunately for San Pedro Sula, hurricanes took a real toll on the economy, especially 1998. Hurricane Mitch absolutely decimated Honduras, killed almost 7,000 Hondurans, causing almost $4 billion in damage. And unfortunately, it hasn't really recovered since then. That's the unfortunate part about what's happening with San Pedro Sula and with Honduras. You guys are hilarious in the chat. I don't know what's going on here with this little tiny me that's over here in the corner. I'm doing the best I can. We're worried about getting to know Real España right now. Unfortunately, in San Pedro Sula, gang violence and military coups have also severely affected the city and the country. And as recently as 2015, I know this is not a title that any city wants, but as recently as 2015, San Pedro Sula was the murder capital of the world. Yikes. In 2015, it got that title, and it got to give it away in 2016. It's no longer the murder capital of the world, but it's still relatively close, unfortunately. So that is that's getting to know a little bit more about San Pedro Sula. Where Real España plays, they play at Estadio General Francisco Morazan, or as it's known as the Morazan, and we'll talk a little bit about the stadium in just a minute. What I love about that team is their nickname. Yeah, it's kind of fun. We, of course, are the black and gold. Well, they are Los Aurinegros, the gold and blacks. So, look, it's not as if it is the Columbus Crew trying to convince us all that yellow is gold for them. No, but they've called themselves the gold and blacks now for quite some time, Los Aurinegros. The trophies they have won, as you can see there, before they went to a split season, before they went to an Apertura Clausura format, they were the 7-time Honduran champion. Since moving to that format, they have now won the Apertura 4 times and the Clausura once. This is a club that has a deep connection with CONCACAF Champions Cup. They are, you guys in the chat are hilarious. They've been in the CONCACAF Champions Cup 18 times now, including 2026. The best that they've ever done is making the semifinals of the CONCACAF Champions Cup in 1991. And as you can see there, their current CONCACAF ranking is number 63. They have moved up a little bit. LAFC is 8th, just a couple of points behind Columbus Crew in 8th. What's happening, Mario and Little O and all of you guys there? Thank you so much for coming back into the chat. We miss you guys. We love you guys. But that being said, Takug is basically reciting all of Haunted Mansion right now, which is kind of fun to know that he's doing that. So a little bit more about the stadium. As you can see there, that is what they call the Morazan. According to FIFA, its capacity is 18,000. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to try and pack in there. I've got to believe that aside from maybe an appearance by either Argentina or Portugal recently, I don't know if there has been one. I've got to believe that Son Heung-min must be the biggest name to hit Honduras in quite some time. So playing at the Morazan must be a massive deal for Hondurans there. Obviously, 18,000 according to FIFA. It's named after, by the way, because I know you were all curious, named after General Francisco Morazan, who was the president of the Federal Republic of Central America from 1830 to 1839. In fact, YouTube is also saying that he was the de facto president in 1829. So really an 11-year run as the president of the Federal Republic of Central America. He died at 49 years old by firing squad. He became a martyr and a symbol of Central American independence. And something that I know our buddy Kevin and others out there will appreciate. A 2017 movie called Morazan depicts his last days, and it was Honduras's very first ever submission to the Academy Awards. It was submitted as a foreign language film. So I don't know, if you've got nothing better to do, check out the 2017 movie Morazan, which talks about General Francisco Morazan's final days. And oh, by the way, he also has a species of Honduran lizard named after him, Anolis morazani. It's named after General Francisco Morazan. It's a little tan and brown lizard. So that's kind of a neat thing. If you're General Morazan, among the other things, Fluffhead, that's hilarious. Among the other things, why not have a lizard named after you? So that's a little bit about the Morazan. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they protect the LAFC supporters that are going down to that match. All right, let's look at them in the standings. It's been a very successful clausura for Real España. You can see 6 matches. They have 4 wins, no losses, 2 draws. They have outscored their opponents by 5, 10 goals for, and 5 against in 6 matches. That means they don't give up a ton of goals. And as you can see, even though they've got 1 more match played than Motagua, than Olancho, than Olimpia, they still have a stranglehold on the top with 14 points, 5 clear of Motagua. Takug, I would love, by the way, to have a lizard named after me someday. That's Scarfosaurus Rex or whatever you want to call it. That would be kind of fun. But so you can see where they are in the standings. It's been a successful clausura for them, 6 matches in. Let's talk about their head man. This is Justin Campos. Over 500 matches as a head man. He's actually flirted back and forth with Saprissa for many different times. He's, I think, had 3 or 4 different stints at Saprissa, but this is his first stint with Real España. He was hired in January of 2024, and as you can see, he has an overall record with Real España of 35 wins, 26 losses, and 19 draws. Like I said, the former manager of Saprissa, as well as, by the way, Galaxy's opponent last year in CONCACAF Champions Cup, Herediano. He's also managed Cartagines and the Puerto Rican national team. So he's managed a ton of very successful clubs, and he does prefer this 5-3-2 format. So what does that mean for LAFC? Well, we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into our keys to the match and my score prediction, because our players to watch are coming up in just a minute as we get to know all of these players from Real España. But that being said, that 5-3-2, I would say expect a low block. Expect them to put numbers in the box. Expect it to be difficult, at least early on, to try and break them down. But we'll see what happens with Justin Campos's side there for Real España. And of course, there is a massive LAFC connection in this one, that of Buba, Luis Buba Lopez, who, of course, LAFC signed in 2018. He was supposed to be, by all accounts, the starting goalkeeper for LAFC in 2018. He never could quite shake the injury bug. And then, of course, Tyler Miller coming out of nowhere to steal the job from Luis Lopez for the remainder of that inaugural season. We did hire him away from Real España in 2018. And of course, he started just the one match for us in our inaugural season, August 12th, 2018, Sporting Kansas City beating Buba Lopez 2-0. The second goal of that match scored against Buba by one Ilie Sanchez. So somebody who we would get to know as a black and gold member quite a bit over the course of his career. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be for Buba. And as you can see there, if you look closely on that picture, Luis Buba Lopez is pictured in an LAFC goalkeeper's kit. That's right. That was one of the options back then in 2018, that it was kind of a tannish, greenish, bluish. It almost looked Seattle Sounders-ish type goalkeeper uniform. That is Buba in an LAFC kit. So definitely the connection there. And Buba, by the way, has gone back to Real España after a couple of different stints in other places and has had a very, very successful run for Real España. He, by the way, will likely be starting in net against us tomorrow. So if you see me go through all of these players to watch, the reason why I don't mention a goalkeeper is because it's likely going to be Buba. So let's get to know a little bit more of this roster. Now, one thing I want to mention here, I was very prepared to talk about two different strikers. Eddie Hernandez, the 34-year-old Honduran who is a proven goal scorer wherever he goes. For the Honduran national team, he's capped 28 times with 8 goals. He has 4 goals in 2026 for Real España this year. 4 goals in 2026 for Real España, 2 from the penalty spot. His name is Eddie Hernandez, the 34-year-old Honduran. However, when I looked today, this is the night before the match, when I looked today on CONCACAF's rosters for CONCACAF Champions Cup, I did not see Eddie Hernandez on their initial roster. Now, they have not updated their roster in any spot that I could tell, but I'm telling you right now, Eddie Hernandez, if he does play for Real España, he would certainly be a player to watch, currently leading the goal scoring for Real España in the Clausura with 4 goals scored, but again, 2 of those coming by way of the penalty spot. The other player who I was prepared to talk about is David Sayago, 25-year-old Argentinian who joined Real España in January. He's got 2 goals in 6 matches during the Clausura for Real España. However, again, on CONCACAF's site, neither Eddie Hernandez nor David Sayago are mentioned at all. They are not on the preliminary roster. That's not to say that they can't submit an amended roster and Eddie Hernandez and David Sayago don't play against us tomorrow. So if you see them, you can say, okay, these are the 2 players that Scarf was talking about at forward. But unfortunately, they weren't on the roster. So I didn't want to include everything about them, but let's talk about one of only 3 players who is even listed as a forward on the roster. And this is Derrickson Vuelto. Derrickson Vuelto, by the way, former member of the Portland Timbers, did not play against us, but did play in one match with the Portland Timbers in 2018. Now, again, this is another player who, okay, it didn't work out MLS side for Derrickson Vuelto, but it has absolutely worked out well for him with Real España. We talk about Buba Lopez. Buba Lopez has 339 appearances for Real España. He is a club legend. He has been there for forever. Buba Lopez. Well, if you're talking about guys who are trying to cement their own legacy at Real España, 280 matches, 57 goals for Derrickson Vuelto, including 3 goals in the 2026 Clausura. So these are two players between Buba with 339 caps and Derrickson Vuelto with 280 that have been there. They have seen some things for Real España. And at forward, I don't think there will be a player more dangerous than Derrickson Vuelto. Let's talk. After Derrickson Vuelto, we got to look to the midfield. And there are two midfielders who really do jump out at me, at least for now. Now, by the way, again, another player who I was ready to talk about, 21-year-old Honduran Anthony Garcia, this kind of midfielder wing hybrid. He loves to attack. 13 goals in 42 matches when he was part of Colorado Rapids 2. That's right, Colorado Rapids 2, 13 goals in 42 matches. He has been a threat, certainly, for Real España. He has played well in the Clausura, but another player who is not on their CONCACAF Champions Cup roster, according to their website. So, that being said, let's look at the two players that are on the roster and two players that you'll certainly have to contend with in the midfield tomorrow against LAFC. The first is the 26-year-old Honduran Jack Jean-Baptiste. He is a 6'2" midfielder. He is going to stick out for sure in that midfield. He's much more of a defensive or a holding midfielder is Jack Jean-Baptiste, but he's the guy that's going to be 6'2" as you're watching the roster. Number 14 for them on their roster. And their second midfielder that I want to look at is Daniel Aparicio. Daniel Aparicio is one of the better up-and-coming midfielders in CONCACAF. He has 10 goals in 66 career matches with Real España. He is a 25-year-old Panamanian who earned his first cap with the Panamanian senior national team just about a month ago in a very tough and hard-fought 1-0 loss against Mexico. Daniel Aparicio is a player who Real España is very high on, and I think Daniel Aparicio is a player who Real España might look to make some money off of by selling him potentially even into MLS over the next couple of seasons. So I would love to get into Anthony Garcia a little bit more, but he's not on the CONCACAF Champions Cup roster. But Daniel Aparicio and Jack Jean-Baptiste, certainly a couple of names to look for in the midfield. Now, that being said, as we head to the back line, we talked about Buba and how many matches he's played. We talked about Vuelto and how many matches he's played with Real España. Well, if you have watched, and unfortunately I haven't, but if you have watched any Real España games since about 2019, you have no doubt seen Devron Garcia and Franklin Flores patrolling the back line for Real España. Devron Garcia is a 30-year-old Honduran who spent a little bit of time in the Orlando City organization. He was with them in 2016 and 2017, but he only ever played for Orlando City B back then. He has since come back to Real España, and he has been a mainstay on the back line, has Devron Garcia, since 2019. We're talking 260-plus appearances across all competitions since 2019 for Devron Garcia. And pairing up with him likely at left back, Garcia is more of a center back, but likely at left back will be 29-year-old Honduran Franklin Flores. 254 appearances in a Real España shirt since 2018. Keep in mind, we don't have anybody that's ever played that many matches for LAFC in our history. Eddie Segura is set to take over the all-time caps lead for LAFC with just 3 more matches, I think it is, maybe even 4, passing Carlos Vela. But Franklin Flores, 254 appearances on the back line for Real España. Devron Garcia, 260-plus appearances. So both of these guys have been lining up together since 2019, and you can certainly expect to see quite a bit from their center back number 6, Devron Garcia, and their left back number 5, Franklin Flores. With that being said, that's quite a few players to watch. Let's get into what I think are going to be my keys to the match. Look, first and foremost, my keys to the match are simple. We need to score early and often. What we saw so many times throughout those final dozen-plus matches of 2025 with Sonny and with Denis is that we score early and often. And it's usually off the foot of one of our 2 superstars. Now, we haven't seen Sonny in the preseason. He really hasn't done much except shake hands, kiss babies, and sign autographs. And thanks to Paul's doing a really good job of protecting him. If you've seen any of this stuff on social media today, going through Honduras, walking through San Pedro Sula, he hasn't done a ton at all. But that being the case, I don't want to have to use him very much tomorrow either. I would love to score early and often so that maybe after 20 minutes, it's 2-0 or 3-0. Maybe after 45 minutes, it's 3-0 or 4-0. And we can pull out some of these boys so that they can get healthy, they can get rest. It is still very, very early in the season. Obviously, this is our first match of the year. So scoring early and often will certainly help. I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying one of the keys to the match is to avoid injury in this one. Obviously, that's the goal in every match, but especially in this first match, when you get it going 100% for the first time in quite some time, when you get it going against guys who are looking at you as their meal ticket. This is one of the biggest matches that Real España has ever played in its history. This is one of the biggest matches they've certainly played since 2023. And again, the eyes of the world watch Son Heung-min wherever he goes, and the eyes of the world are beginning to take notice of Denis Bouanga after his incredible 3-season run with 98 goals scored for the Black and Gold. So that being said, we've got to make sure we avoid injury. We've got to make sure we score early and often. But to me, the most important key to the match, I just talked to you about 2 defenders who have played 250-plus matches for this club, for their crest, Real España. But then we go and we look at their front line with Derrickson Vuelto, 280 matches for Real España. And then there's Buba with 339, almost 340 matches for Real España. What you are going up against when you walk into the Morazán, when you walk into San Pedro Sula, is not just, okay, a club that's ranked 63rd, 50 some odd spots behind LAFC, and probably not the best club even in their own country most years in Honduras. In fact, when that club Marathon is good, they're not even the best club in San Pedro Sula. But what they are is an extremely prideful club. They battle for 90 minutes. The players up and down their roster, for the most part, are also Honduran. They take pride in representing not just the city of San Pedro Sula, and obviously not just the crest of Real España, but Honduras and Central America as a whole. So this is going to be an important test for LAFC. Can we match the pride of that starting 11, of whoever comes off the bench for Real España? This is all their chips in the middle. This is their best shot. And imagine the headlines if they can figure out a way to make it tough for LAFC. They are absolutely looking for style points, looking for motivation, looking for moral victories to help spur them onward for these 90 minutes. This is a massive moment for them. However, LAFC is bringing a squad, the likes of which Real España doesn't normally face. Bringing in Denis Bouanga and Son Heung-min, if they were playing in the Honduran First Division, would have 40 or 50 goals. Sonny and Denis are enough firepower to put this thing away early and to make sure that LAFC puts this thing to bed by halftime. I truly believe that both of our big scorers in this one will have at least a brace, and that after 45 minutes, it really will be 3-0 or 4-0, and LAFC will have done their job away in San Pedro Sula, so that number one, we can get a little bit of rest coming back to play Inter Miami, which, oh, by the way, that's a thing in just a couple of days after this one on Saturday, and then making sure that we are healthy for Tuesday's second leg of this at BMO Stadium. It's just going to be easier if we get out and score early. And I do predict that we will. This is a club that averages scoring 2 goals a game in the Clausura so far. And this is a club that averages giving up 1 goal a game. And I toyed with a 5-1 scoreline potentially in front of their home crowd, in front of the Hondurans and San Pedro Sula. I would, I guess a moral victory for them might be scoring in this one. But no, I don't think it's going to happen. I genuinely think LAFC has been playing excellent defense. I think what we saw from Lorenzo Della Valle, of all people, at the Coachella Valley Invitational, I think what we are going to see from players like Artem Smolyakov. Obviously, we know we have Sergi Palencia, and we know what we get from Ryan Porteous. I think it'll be maybe Nkosi Tafari starting on that back line early enough. It'll be Porteous and Tafari with Ryan Hollingshead and Sergi Palencia on that back line. Midfield could be very, very interesting this year with Matty Chonier, with Marky Delgado, with several of these players that we brought in. I mean, Boudry, I'm really looking forward to seeing. And obviously, I think there are still some visa issues going on with Steven Eustachio. Not sure what's going on there, but definitely expect to see heavy doses of Eddie Segura in this tournament as well. Timothy Tillman will certainly play a role. It'll be interesting to see how they use David Martinez. I really think that Marc Dos Santos might employ a more traditional 4-3-3 at times, but I think that the big part for me is if they choose to use David Martinez as that hybrid midfielder attacker role, something that we saw quite a bit with players like Matty Bogusz and certainly with Kike Oliveira, although Kike Oliveira even played like a left back kind of hybrid attacking role when we played 5 in the back. It's going to be really interesting to see how they use David Martinez. All I've heard from some of the coaching staff is how world-class Steven Eustachio is. So it leads me to believe that LAFC is just going to have too much quality. Yes, Rob is asking in the chat, Martinez as a 10 behind Son and Bouanga. That's certainly something that's been talked about. Hi, everybody. It's my giant head now, once again. It's certainly something that's been talked about quite a bit. I'll put, you can see Schmurdy's lineup here. He says Smolyakov, Porteous, Segura, Palencia, which means no Ryan Hollingshead in the starting lineup. Interesting. Mario, I love hearing that Little O is clapping. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Eustaquio Tillman Delgado. I don't know. I really like Matty Chonier. I think we could see Eustaquio Delgado Chonier for quite a bit of this season. We'll see. We'll see. And then Denny Bawanga, Son, and Martinez up top. If we do play that 4-3-3, I like that too. The bottom line is I like our chances in this. I like our chances not just to move on, but to move on with authority, to say it with our chest, especially while we are there in Honduras. I think it'll be 5-0. I would absolutely love to hear and see your thoughts in the chat. Again, this is our first ever episode on the Believe Network, but you can still also hit us up on Twitter. You can leave your comments on YouTube. If you're following us for the first time on Twitter at Defend the Bank, and that's bank with a C, everywhere else, Defenders of the Bank. Normally we do a One More Sleep segment, but again, when we get to play a team in a special tournament like this, from a place that we don't normally get to play teams from, and that is the beautiful country of Honduras, that's why we got to do a little bit more of a deep dive on this club, Real España, and I think it's going to be a good one. For all of you LAFC supporters that are out there, that are in San Pedro Sula right now, travel safe, travel together, and let's all get back home to celebrate what should be a victory. And then we'll talk about it on Wednesday after the match. And then after that, don't forget, we'll have One More Sleep on Friday. We'll have another match, this one against Inter Miami, and that could be interesting. Well, who knows what the Messi injury is going to bring us there. Then we'll have our recap on Sunday, another One More Sleep on Monday about Real España, and then the match next Tuesday. And of course, one more match recap on Wednesday. So that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed a little deep dive here on Real España, and we'll see what happens. I've got 5-0, you guys. Want to know what you think, but otherwise, thank you all for joining and for being a part of the Defenders of the Bank family. We love you guys, and we will see you in just a couple of days.